And welcome back to Washington Commanders Insider. Today, we're talking about Deatrich Wise Jr. and how his leadership and experience is going to be huge for this team to take another step forward this upcoming season. And so before we go ahead and we jump into it, I first want to remind you to hit that subscribe button, just like Jaden Daniels is going to be hitting, Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel, Zach Ertz, and many others for multiple touchdowns this upcoming season. And so in exchange for hitting that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Washington Commanders. And so make sure that you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, and you join the Washington Commanders Insider family as we talk nothing but Washington Commanders football. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into it. We're talking about Deatrich Wise Jr. and how he is going to bring some leadership and experience to this defense, which is going to help it take a step forward, but also too will help this team take another step forward. And so, look, I got a chance to look at an article which was posted here on Clutch Points. And within this article, it takes little snippets from a podcast that he did about 2 weeks ago with John Keim, who is an ESPN insider. He also covers the team as well. It's a 24-minute podcast and just some great content there as he's talking about his foundation. He's talking about his experience growing up and how that has played a factor into his professional football career. And he's also talking about little fundamental things that he sees with the Washington Commanders and talking about his experience and how that's going to play in to this season with the Washington Commanders. And so a great listen and also to a great read if you get a chance to check it out. So I wanted to go ahead and just talk about just the key points out of that. And I think that the first thing that I want to talk about is the two key takeaways that I get out of that. And it's the leadership and the experience. And I think that both of those are something that you just cannot, there's no stat for that. And I think that that is why I really like the additions that the Washington Commanders have got over the last two seasons. And I think that those two things are really what has changed the standard for the Washington Commanders. And it sounds like that this is another signing that is going to help to really build on the standards for the Washington Commanders, which I love that. And I like the fact that this team just continues to build and they have not stayed stagnant from year one, which really suggests that this team is pointing upward already. And when I think about all the additions that have happened over this free agency period. And so not just Deatrich Wise Jr., but also too, with Deebo Samuel, with Laramie Tunsil, with Jonathan Jones, like they all have that leadership experience and they also all have just the experience in general, just based off what they've gone through in the league. Because when you're looking at Jonathan Jones and then also to Deatrich Wise, these are guys who are Super Bowl champions. And then with Deebo Samuel, he is a guy that has played in the Super Bowl. We already know what Bobby Wagner has done. And so I think that that was part of just changing the standard for the Washington Commanders. And so I think that that's the two key takeaways to take out of this. But next, I mean, when you start to break down some of the things that were said, and again, just paraphrasing this, but one of the first things that he talks about is Coach Dan Quinn, and he talks about how detail-oriented that Dan Quinn is along with the coaching staff. In fact, he talks about how Dan Quinn really sets the standard, for the team with the meetings, and then also too talking about the fundamentals, which is something that he talks about with Coach Bill Belichick, which does come up in the interview. And he's talking about how Coach Bill Belichick just really harped on the fundamentals and things like that. And so I love to hear that. And I think that that just kind of lets you know just the type of work that the Washington Commanders are putting in. And so, if you're hearing that from Deatrich Wise Jr., a guy that has played, for a head coach that has had a lot of success in this league, and he's already telling you that, hey, some of the things that I've seen with Coach Bill Belichick and just really being detail-oriented like that with this staff, he's seeing it here. I think that that is a great thing to hear and certainly excited to hear that, especially when it comes down to the defense and how that is going to play out. And next, he talks about just going out there and really practicing with a purpose. And I think that that's something that, it's not new news, but I think it's great to hear this, especially from Deatrich Wise Jr. when he's talking about these details about how, you play, you prepare, and you practice at a high level and you work on this execution, and then that you want to practice the same way that you want to play in games. And so talking about how that is key for the Washington Commanders and just really getting into these little details and things like that. And that leads me to another thing that he talks about when he was asked about like how, the run defense can get better. And he talks about really playing together and like just putting it that simple. And I think that that really goes into some of the things that I've kind of been pointing out just leading up to this video is that, a lot of the players that the Washington Commanders brought in this time around, this last free agency, it really fits from a scheme standpoint to what I think Coach Joe Witt Jr. wants to do and really what this coaching staff envisioned defensively, which is why I just think that I got this hunch that defensively we're going to be a lot better than just what we were a season ago against the run, even though we haven't gone out there and just drafted somebody that was marquee in the draft to put on the defensive line or whatnot, because I know, a lot of the talk was about, hey, going out and getting an edge rusher or going out there and getting a player to put on the defensive line. But the fact that Adam Peters really trusts what he brought over in free agency, and then you're hearing from Joe Witt Jr. that he's excited about the length and the versatility that he's going to get with this unit this year. Like, I think that this team is in a great situation with what they have. And it just makes me think about this value signings that Adam Peters does, because once again, it's the signings that he's doing where it's not going to put the team in a financial bind, but he continues to get just the invaluable type of experience and leadership that you need to be a winner. And so I just love to hear this detail from Deatrich Wise Jr. Again, make sure that you go and you check this out, because, he's just talking about what he also would bring to the team and just talking about, how to read blocks and understanding what he does from a physical standpoint for his assignment and to be a successful into that. And so make sure you go and you listen to that. But again, just talking about Deatrich Wise and just this experience and this leadership, I think just tying it all together, that is really what makes this special for the Washington Commanders and really what they have brought in with the additions. And so anyway, you guys let me know in the comments here what you guys are thinking about Deatrich Wise Jr. Do you feel like that he is going to be a huge impact here for this team, not just defensively, but also too when we're talking about the standards of this team, because I think that that's what it's really all been about for this team, is just getting the foundational principles together and continuing to build off of that. So you guys let me know. And as we always say, look, go Commanders, and I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.